Well then, it would seem that I'm still on this smegging planet. It's probably time to get up, I suppose. Right, so... morning, is it? So it is. The sun is coming up. Fantastic. Right, we need to formulate a plan for today. Now, I think the best place to start would probably be to build some kind of exploration vehicle, so I can have a little bit of a nosy around the local area. We need to get more resources than just using stone. I need to find some iron, I need to find some cobalt, I need to find some ice, and various other things. So, we're probably going to have to build some kind of docking bay / workshop thing where I can work on some kind of vehicle. But I think first, I'm going to make this bit in here look a little bit more homely. Kind of threw everything together in a bit of a rush just to have somewhere to survive, but I think we can do a little bit more within here. Then we can work out what we're going to do with the workshop. So, let's have a look at some stuff. Now first, I think I want to get rid of this desk and I want to replace it with something a little bit more useful. So I think I'm going to replace it with a desk that actually has a computer on it. That'll probably be a bit more handy. We're going to need some more parts. There we go, that'll do. And I think we can probably take this kitchen out and replace it with an actual sink. That'd be a little bit more useful to have in the corner. And we can move the kitchen somewhere else. We can have a sink there. And then I could have my kitchen there. Just go get some parts for this lab sink. Right, there we go. There's a kitchen sink. I might also replace this cargo container. And we'll replace it with a cargo terminal. There we go, that's a little better. Still got cargo access. Fantastic. And I think we'll get ourselves a display console right in the centre of the room, just so we can project any useful things that we find, or any useful information. Right, there we go. There's our little base of operations control table. Okay then, so I've set up a little list of things to do. First of all, we need to build some kind of workshop, so we can actually get ourselves set up and start building exploration vehicle. And then we need to have a little explore around the local area and see what we can see, and hopefully find some decent resources. And most importantly, we need to find the station again. First of all, we need to make a few adjustments in here and start setting ourselves up with a workshop. And I've added my most recent scan data of the station into the projection table, so at least we know what we're looking for and the condition it was in when we last saw it. Who knows what kind of state it's in now. Right, so first things first, I think I need to build a door here, because I want to be able to get in and out of this workshop without having to go outside. So we'll take that bit of wall out, and we'll also take this bit of floor out as well. I think we'll put one of the sliding hatch doors in there. We have a windowed passage there. And then I could put another hatch door there. Yeah, I think that'll work. Right, let's get those things welded up. Right, looks like we've run out of iron again. Right, we're gonna have to do some more drilling with the big arm. Right, that's one door. It's the car door. And that's the other door. Right, we need a floor in here as well, realistically. Right, there we go. There's a new floor block. You know what? I might even change that for a different corridor. Let's make it that one instead. There we go. You know what? I might also change the floor in here a little bit. Make it look a little bit nicer and a bit more colourful. So let's take out some of these blocks. And then I might use these new floor blocks as some decoration. There we go, that floor looks a little bit more homely, a little bit more interesting. Less dull and grey. Right, on to the next thing. And now I need to lay out the foundation for my workshop. Let's try and figure something out. And we're going to add a whole bunch of these new floor blocks. So we'll do all of these around the outside. And then I think we'll have some of these stripy ones on the inside. And then I think I'm going to build a rotor in the centre of here, so I can build myself some kind of building platform. It looks like I could probably do with building some kind of O2 extraction on top of here. Let's build a little ramp and get up here. And let's put an air vent up here that we can stick on depressurize, and that should hopefully extract all the oxygen we need to breathe. Okay, there we go. We have an air vent. Get rid of that ramp. And there we go. I can now get oxygen from the survival kit. Much better. Right, let's carry on with this floor. Right then, that's the floor done. Now we need to build a rotor. We'll take the head off the top of that one, and then replace it with a small one instead. Right, and that's the rotor base. And that's the rotor head. Fantastic. Now we can start welding up what's going to be the beginning of this building platform. Okay, now that the building platform's done, I think I'm going to put a piston right in the middle of it and get that welded up. And it looks like we need more iron again. Right, back to the drilling arm. Now we need some large steel tubes. I'll go get those in a minute. Right, next step. So I think I'll put a rotor on top, and I can build straight off that. Right, that's the rotor done. So in theory, I can now just build a mech off the top of that. Might have to build myself some kind of platform or something to stand on. It's going to get a little bit tricky building like this. Yeah, right, we'll have to think of a few other things. So I think I'll put a button panel there. So we've got some basic controls over the building platform. Yeah, I'm going to need more parts for that as well. Right, there's a button panel. I'll sort that out as I go. Right, we probably need to put a roof on this thing next. So we've got a bit of shelter. So I think I might put some windows in here to start. So I've got a little bit of natural light coming in. Let's try something like this. Then the end piece either side. Okay then, that's the window sorted out. Now I need to think about some kind of roof structure. I need something that's going to keep me covered, and I'm going to need something that's going to leave me enough room to work. So let's try out a few ideas. Right, let's try a bunch of half blocks up here to start with. Oop. Yeah, let's try something like that. Okay, then we'll try some of these slope blocks. There we go, I think that's starting to take shape a little bit. Right, let's continue with the roof. Right then, something like that looks like it might work quite well. Now I just need to go and mine a bunch of resources so I can actually weld it all up. Now I reckon if I had an event controller, I can automate this drill and make it work a little bit better. Alright, let's sort out setting this programming up. So if I set that event controller to look at piston position, and set that up, and have it looking at drill number 1, when that drill gets to its full extension, I can then get piston number 3 to extend as well. And then we can have a whole drill arm move down in one movement. Oh, but I am actually going to have to set that up the other way around. I need to set that to... yeah, I need to set that to less than 1%. Yeah, I reckon that'll do. And as we get closer to that limit, is it going to work? There we go, we've got to less than 1% on that first piston, and now the second piston has started. Right, fantastic, that'll do. Right, I suppose I'm going to need to build some kind of building platform so I can actually reach these other walls. Aha! It doesn't matter that I don't have a proper jetpack. And we need to get some more steel plates. Okay, let's sort these walls out a little bit more. Will I put some of those blocks in there? And then if I do the same thing on the other side. Right, let's get some of this stuff welded up before we go any further. And of course I need more steel plates. Right, that looks pretty decent. Okay, let's sort out this back wall. And then I think I need to maybe build some lights in here too. Right, we have an angled wall either side of that door. And I'll just have some half armor blocks. And then we'll have a bunch of armor slope bases across the top. And then we can just fill that gap in. Some of these shapes, I think. There we go, that's the back wall finished off. Then I'll just get rid of these little construction platforms. Right, I think I need some lighting in here somewhere, somehow. If I stick a light up there like that, then I'll do another one on the other side. Take that block out, and then I'll put one of those in. Then we can have another angled floodlight right there. Right, that's one light. Let's do the next one. There we go, that looks a little bit better. I can actually see what I'm doing in here now. Right, let's sort out some of the controls for this building platform. I'm going to need to build a computer for it somewhere. So I think I might build a computer off this hinge here. Take that out. Add in a small head. And get all of that welded up. Okay then, that's the base welded up. And that's the hinge head welded up. Fantastic. So I reckon I'm going to set up these computer controls with a bunch of lights. And then those lights are going to trigger some event controllers. And then we'll have a bunch of timer blocks to trigger the lights. And that is all of those welded up. Right, I just need to name them and sort out a few things. And that's all them named and prettied up for a second, so let's go and have a little play with them. Right then, if I set the workshop piston up controller to block on and off, and then I can set the piston light up as the trigger for it, and when we turn that light on, we can have the velocity increase, and when we turn that light off, we can have it stop. And then if I take that workshop piston light up and set that to toggle block on and off in that timer, I can then set the button to trigger now on that timer block, and I can have the piston extend. Right, I just need to do the same thing for all the other controls, and maybe adjust the speed that that piston extends. That was a little bit too quick, I think. Right then, that's the control panel sorted out. Now I've got buttons to move that piston up and down. I can also stop it when I need to, and I can turn the whole platform around if necessary. Okay, so next thing, let's get rid of these little construction platforms. And then I think it's time to start thinking about some kind of exploration vehicle. So, let's have a little think. What exactly do I want to do? Okie dokie then. I think I want to build some kind of multi-pad. I think I want to build it with at least the possibility of being able to use some AI controls and maybe have it potentially follow me around while I'm on foot. So, let's start with some kind of control system. Now, I like my mechs to walk, so the first thing I'm going to do is put a timer right in the middle, and that is going to be the main walk control cycle. And then we'll place a bunch of event controllers for its walk controls. Right then, that's all of those welded up. So if I put another layer of event controllers there, we can use them for the drive controls. And then we'll need another pair of timers for part of the walk cycle. In fact, I'm going to rearrange some of those parts actually. Take those out. So we'll have a left and right for the steering. We'll have an event controller for the parking brake. And then we can have another one for the handbrake. And then we'll have a timer there for the walk start and a timer there for the walk reset. Okay, so that's the next layer of controls welded up. Now we can think about how we're going to design this thing. And where I want to build the legs and how I want to build them. Right, so that's a basic layer of conveyor blocks, so we can possibly get some ammo and fuel and things from front to back. I'm probably going to end up putting arms on this thing, so might as well put the infrastructure in place to build some arm weapons later on. Next thing we need to do though is place a rotor right there, and then that can become part of the walk controls. Right, that's all of that bit done. Now we can start having a think about where we want to put the legs on this thing. And that's all the basic rotors done for now. Now we need to think about how we actually want these legs to look and how we want them to move. And we're also going to need to raise that platform up a little bit. Right, I reckon something like that's a good starting point. We've got 6 legs, I just need to figure out what I'm going to do with the lower half of each leg. But yeah, before we go any further, I'm going to weld some of this stuff up just to be safe. Oh, I need power. Right, we need to get these hinges welded up as well. Right, that's them welded up. So if I have a rotor on the end of each leg, and I can potentially reposition the bottom half where I'm planning on attaching a suspension block, so I can get all the wheels in a nice straight line when I need to. And if I stick a remote control on the end of each leg, I'll be able to make a manual handbrake control system. Then I can put a suspension block on the end of each of these legs. Right, that's all the remote controls to control the handbrake. Now let's sort out the wheels. Right then, that's the last of the suspension blocks. The legs are looking pretty good now. Now the next thing to think about is a control seat. What kind of control seat do I want? You know what, I might go with that one. It's the easiest to get into and it has a really good field of view on it. So we'll stick one of those there for the moment. If we need to change it, we can always do that later. Oh, damn, it needs metal grids. Oh, that's a problem though, isn't it? Well, we'll have to adjust that plan then. Right, we'll go with that one instead for the moment then. There we go, we have a functioning cockpit. And I can reach that from the ground. Fantastic. Right, now I think I'll rearrange this conveyor system a little bit. And I also need to think about where I'm going to put a little bit of power. So I think I might stick a battery and potentially a hydrogen engine on the back end as a little bit of a power source. Right, I'll go and get those bits welded up. Right, that's them welded up. So if I put a conveyor converter there, like that, I could squeeze a hydrogen engine under there. I could potentially have an air vent fan there to both double as a conveyor connection and feed my cockpit with oxygen. Yeah, that might work out quite well. And then we could put an O2H2 generator on the top on that connection point. If we find some ice, that'll come in quite handy. Right, let's get all of these parts welded up then. Right, that's the hydrogen engine. That's the air vent. And that's the conveyor converter. Let's get up there and get that O2H2 generator. Fantastic. Right, we now have a means of fuel production and life support. And if I have this air vent set to depressurize, when I jump in this cockpit, it should replenish my oxygen. Yes, fantastic. Right. That's going to make exploring a lot easier. Okay, so I think that's all the basic parts of what I need for now, at least. Other than a couple of lights for the control system. So if I take a couple of blocks out of here, I can replace them with a pair of inset lights, then we can use them to trigger the walk cycle. There we go, and that's the two walk lights. And then we should probably add a battery to the back, so we've got a bit of power storage. And we need to go and get that welded up as well. There we go, we now have a battery. So I'm going to stick that on recharge mode. Let that power up a little bit first. And we're also going to need a couple of thrusters down here to control the walk cycle and the drive controls. So for now, I think I'll do something simple like that. Again, I can change it later if needs be. So let's get these welded up. Oh yeah, they need metal grids as well, don't they? I think, in that case, I might sacrifice this cargo terminal for the moment, because I need the 4 grids that are in U. And we'll just replace it with a steel block for now, if I have the parts for it. Right, that'll have to do for now. Let's get these thrusters built. Right, that's 1 thruster. That's 2 thrusters. That's 3 thrusters. Right, just quickly name these. Okay, now we should be able to jump into the cockpit and start setting up some of these control systems. Right then, everything's named and sorted out, so let's get building these walking controls. Right, so the first thing I need to do is select walk forward controller L01. Set that to block switched on and off. Now select walk light L01. When that light turns on, I'm going to have the left leg set of rotors move forward. When the light turns off, I'm going to have them move backwards. There we go. On forwards, off backwards. Fantastic. Then also, when that light turns on, I want those legs to lift up. And when the light turns off again, I want them to drop back down. And then we can go to the walk return L01 controller. And we can change that to rotor hinge angle. And then if we select the front left, mid right and rear left hinge, and then set it to less than minus 45 for now maybe. See how well that works. And then when those legs get to that angle, they will increase the velocity and make the legs drop back down again. There we go, forward step, drops back down. Perfect. Right, now we just need to do the same thing with the other side. Yeah, and that should be the right hand side set up. There we go. So the right hand side can do a step, and the left hand side can do a step. So the next thing we need to do is offset those legs. Go to our walk cycle timer, and then all we need to do is have both of those lights turning on and off. So now if I trigger that walk cycle timer, there we go, I now have the beginnings of the walk cycle. And that has just reminded me that I completely forgot to build any walk cycle controllers, so let's stick 3 of them across the back here, and then we'll get those welded up. There we go, that's those built. Let's just quickly name them. Okay, so now that we've got that walk cycle timer and the walk cycle animations worked out, we can sort out these walk cycle controllers. So they're all going to need to be set to rotor hinge angle, and then they'll all be looking at the walk cycle rotor. And so now we can set each of these walk cycle controllers to a different point. So we'll have that one set to 10 degrees, we'll have that one set to 130 degrees, and then we'll have the last one set to 250 degrees. And then when each of these event controllers gets triggered, it will in turn trigger that walk cycle timer. So in theory, if I give this rotor some velocity, there we go, it triggers the walk cycle. Now I just need to tweak that to something like that, maybe. There we go, that seems to be a nice, smooth animation speed for the moment. And then all I need to do to stop and start that is turn that rotor off. Okie dokie then, so the next thing I need to do is sort out the walk reset and walk start timers. I think I'll start with the walk reset one. It's a little bit easier to start with. The first thing that this walk reset timer is going to do is going to turn off and then turn on both of the walk lights to make sure they default back to a starting position. Then we'll turn off the walk cycle controllers. We'll stop and turn off the walk cycle timer. And then we'll turn off the walk cycle rotor. And then we'll have all of the leg rotors reset back to a default position. And we'll do the same with the leg hinges. So in theory, when I activate this timer, everything should go back to its default position. And then for the walk start timer, we'll have the left leg light turn off and on. We'll have the right leg lights turn on and off to make sure that they offset from each other. And then we'll have the walk cycle controllers turn back on, and we'll have the walk cycle timer turn back on. So now if I trigger that one, it sets everything into motion, and then I can turn on the walk cycle rotor, and everything ticks over. And then if I hit the walk reset timer, it all stops and returns back to its default position. Groovy. Okay, so now I actually need to set up the controllers. So if I select control forwards, set it to thruster output, we'll go with 50% for now. And if I select that forward control thruster, so the first thing that this walk forward controller is going to do is it's going to turn off and on the reverse controls, and then it can turn on and off the forward walk cycle controllers. And then we can trigger walk start, and we can trigger walk reset, and then we can turn the walk cycle rotor on and off. And hopefully, if I've done that correctly, I should now be able to press the forward controls, and now I can walk. And when I let go of the controls, it automatically resets. Right, now I just need to set up the exact same thing for the reverse walk controls. Right, I think that's all set up. So if I hit the backwards key, there we go, legs are moving backwards. Then they reset. I've hit the forwards key, legs moving forwards, they reset. Hit the backwards key, legs moving backwards again. Cool. Right, forwards and backwards controls are working. Now there's a few extra little tweaks I want to make to these walk controls before I do any kind of testing. So when we walk forwards and backwards, I want the suspension blocks to change their steering angle a little bit to assist with the actual walking mechanism. So we'll set the steer override to 100%, and then we'll set the steer override to 0 again. And we'll do the opposite with the right hand side. Now we just need to set up the same thing for the reverse control again. There we go, the suspension is now moving into a more optimal position for both forward and reverse walking modes. Well then, that's been a pretty successful day. We've got a hangar built and set up, and we've made a start on a pretty decent little exploration vehicle. The sun's going down now, so I'm going to go and get my head down too. When we come back next time, I'm going to get this thing finished off, and then I'll go and do a bit of exploring. I badly need to find some ice, and I badly need to find some cobalt. But anyway, off to bed.